For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of That's a Shame. I'm Isaac, and joining me as always over there in jolly old Essex, it's Declan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Isaac?
Oh, keeping on. I've just written a 500-word article about how to prune fruit trees. So life, as they say, is on the way up.
Something you've always been keen to disseminate.
We all have our interests, and I guess I never realised that just different tools you can use, different ways you can essentially just chop bits of a tree. I didn't realise it was such a rich vein of artistic content, is what I'm saying.
But you've been proven wrong.
It's a miracle that I only made it into 500 words rather than a whole book. But look, back we are. Episode 45 came out about 1 minute ago. So
That's good news. Yeah.
I did add a little apology before the episode, and we also in the episode say it's probably not coming out today. Little did we know
it would be out that week.
About 3 months before it would see the light.
We'd recorded and put out 7 new episodes before it was seen.
We're just working on a backlog now. I recorded episode 46, this one, in about May of 2016. Yes, so but we're kind of back on schedule in theory. I mean, I don't want to curse it because it's not the day this is going out, but all things being equal, Wednesday is the new Wednesday and Sunday, which I believe was the rejected title for what became Orange is the New Black, ultimately. Quite an episode we have, I'd say.
As you always do.
Don't know if I've said it before, but I will say it now, and I'm not afraid to point out that we've got all manner of content. We've got shame mail. We've got more 11 plus stories. We've got Proust sitting there in the wings like all those NFL players who aren't being allowed to play because they're daring to kneel, being kept off by their horrid rich bosses.
Bastards. You wonder if they'd lit an effigy and used some tiki torches, if they'd be more acceptable to the Americans, more
they
palatable.
Sound like fine people, may I say. But look, enough vague political satire. It's time to dive straight in to part 2. Is it the concluding part?
This will be the concluding part, I reckon, yeah.
Okay, of Declan's 11 plus stories. Let's very, very quickly recontextualise what the 11 plus is.
It's an entrance exam for secondary school pupils who seek to go to a particular brand of school called a grammar school here.
Yeah.
In the
Daring to dream above their station.
I know, imagine. Social mobility, get out.
Look what it did to Oliver Twist.
That's not what we're about here. Have you read Cain and Abel? They only end up miserable.
Horrid.
So I was referring, of course, to the Jeffrey Archer novel, not the biblical story. That's not so much about social mobility.
Little insight into modern day social strata in the old Bible.
Well, last week we did. 7 minutes ago, we did some misspellings, and we looked over some of the mad things that pupils have to say about their and gography.
Oh yeah,
gorge best. So and we also looked at some fun things they say about superpowers. Today, the focus is going to be more on the odd things that children say, and the actually quite impressive things, or I suppose impressive isn't the word I'm looking for, but the staggeringly adult things that some of them say.
Are you worried that, we're 46 episodes in now, are you worried that but for another 3, we're basically about to start doing a clip show because we've got on to kids say the darndest things? Do you think this is derivative? Or
are you saying...
is it actually the case that you have a particular insight? Because kids do say weird things, but you don't always get to read them in exams.
So what we'll do is I'll go through these, but over the next half hour, I'll try to think of an overarching theme or reason, so that we can't be accused of just being an audiobook of a BuzzFeed article.
Okay, I'll be scrabbling in the dark for some kind of philosophical anchor upon which to kind of base this whole shipwreck.
So I figured that before we head into the 2 main categories I mentioned, I'd like to give special mention to one particular child for whom I had a great deal of empathy.
Baby Jesus.
Taking his 11 plus at last.
Loving
just
your work.
2017 years old.
And I always take October 10th as my day that I set aside to just give thanks, you know, just raise a glass, pour one out for the baby J.
No, this poor boy, he didn't, I mean, semantically, technically, yes, he did make a mistake, but he is not to blame for this.
Okay, society's to blame.
On the front, as we mentioned, there are various categories to fill in. Mm-hmm. There's your name, there's the date, your candidate number, there was your primary school, and then finally, at the bottom, there was the last one where you're supposed to put where you took the test at.
Fair.
Sadly, this final box isn't as clear as it might be, and just says test taken at : and my shout out goes to the poor little boy who put 9:05 a.m.
Oh,
and then
I love the specificity
and
in
then
his wrongness.
put a single line through it and then wrote the name of the school. Had clearly just been told, someone peering over his shoulder, a little invigilator being like, you fucked up, kid. I'm sorry. You've
heard of the first hurdle, haven't you? Well, you're about to hear a lot more about it as the time goes
It's about
by.
to hit you straight
Smacking you
in the
face.
shin. So yeah, which would you like first? Would you like the odd things that kids say, or would you like the cool things that kids say?
I think let's start with odd, because I feel like we can extrapolate more kind of overarching sentiments from if they're going to come out with like our existence is not a predicate or something in their superpower. Then I feel like that'll lead us out nicely on a high.
So like these fall into like various little kind of subgenres, but mainly they fall into failed attempts at a literary voice.
Okay.
So things such as failed similes or metaphors, odd uses of imagery. To kick us off, we have the sentence that in art class we built a mammoth statue of a dragon.
That's lovely. A mammoth statue
of a dragon.
That's great.
And it's just that, you know, they've clearly, like so many of them have just been trained and tutored to remember certain words. So words for size are often there. You get lots of colossals and gigantics or gargantuans, another one that they love to throw in there. And this kid had clearly learnt mammoth, but not the entirety of the word mammoth. And I just stuck it on there, thought nothing else of it. In a similar vein to the person who said, having ice powers would be great. Ice powers rock.
Ice powers rock would be like the slogan for when Iceman joined up with Volcano Girl or something.
Yeah, it feels like a failed attempt at that kind of geology rocks pun.
Yeah, which itself is a very failed attempt at
anything close to wit. Here's a favourite use, because I don't know if I mentioned last time that me and one of the other markers that I was working with started to invent a bit of a drinking game.
That's good.
You inevitably get these stock phrases in there. So sapphire blue sky or Asia blue sky. They love those.
Oh, really?
Describing the sun as a great ball of fire. Like as a metaphor. The best thing about that,
that's such a bad one to teach everyone.
Because the thing is that they use it as a metaphor, but it's just a description. Like it literally is a huge ball of fire,
a plasma ball.
I know. So they always use that. Fast as Usain Bolt is one, and also fast as a cheetah.
Okay.
So you get loads of those, but my favourite use of it this time was someone who said, "Oh, when I got in from school, I fell asleep as fast as a cheetah." It's just such a beautifully failed use of that metaphor, or simile. Sorry,
maybe they just do know that cheetahs are famously soporific, and they're just always on the edge of narcolepsy.
They get the paperback and obviously they don't. This is a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Just let me do the bit, all right?
Okay.
So they get the paper.
No, they don't. You're fucking lying.
Fuck you.
Move
just
on.
looking at it like with a cigar or something in their mouth, just like, oh, I see what I've done there. Of course, I was referring to their popular ability to fall asleep very quickly, but I've made an unintentional double entendre. I love the idea that these
That's
kids
like the
are
Monopoly
all
Man's kid.
that they're all slightly more Oscar Wilde than anyone who's ever taught them. But actually, they're just much wittier. They're doing this to give us material.
Just for japes.
Yeah. Speaking of the Monopoly Man, as a complete aside to all of this, I've been having a mad internet black hole this week of looking into Thomas the Tank Engine, which is a fun thing to do every now and then because it is an absolute dystopian hellscape of a TV show.
Anything that Ringo Starr lends his voice to.
I know. Would you know that George Carlin did the American version? What's that about?
No, I didn't, and I wish I didn't know that because it's not improved my relationship with Thomas and his misdeeds.
But I'm reminded of it because there's a great New Yorker article about it, and in it they describe the Fat Controller as a man who looks like Monopoly's Mr. Moneybags, but with eyes that have almost certainly seen murder.
That's so accurate.
Such a perfect description. To return, however, to kids saying silly things, there was someone who I don't know if this is just as a kind of result of kids being taught to always use adjectives wherever they can, like put something in there.
Stack them up.
So many of them shoehorn one in before every single noun.
Yeah.
And so you end up with really unfortunate phrases such as "my lovely mum's dry mouth."
Oh, that sounds like a confessional slam poem that someone's going to do about like how scathing language in the home can
how they were never loved.
Yeah, it just like undermines your confidence as an adolescent.
Emotional abuse as a child.
What was it? My lovely
mum's dry mouth. Which also reminds me of when I was in year 8, I think, we had a task for German to write a description of a couple of members of your family.
Yeah.
And again,
who has the driest mouth?
You have this idea that you've got to kind of show off, that's the point of the homework. You've got to show that you know the language and that you know the words. So again, shoehorning adjectives in front of every single noun. And it's only years later looking back at this that I realised quite how cutting my description of my mum was, but I described her as having thin lips. Which is such a
people don't stand for that.
I know. I remember her being really offended at the time and just thinking, well, what? What do you want? Fat lips?
That's enough to push anyone to that Kylie Jenner Instagram challenge. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
People were creating a vacuum around their lips so they exploded into collagen hell. That's a shame.
And that's my mum now. She's got no face. And then another kid who referred to, I hope that this was just about how her mum's a good kind of Mary Berry-esque chef. Because if it's not, it's definitely about being drugged. Because she referred to the fact that she loved to eat mummy's special biscuits.
Oh, no. That's like salad fingers.
That's up there with
Mummy's special biscuits.
That's up there with mummy's special Ribena.
That she drinks to calm down after her stories.
After a long day.
Yeah. Quick sidebar to discuss the shame that is. So the Great British Bake Off has been one of our big TV exports of late.
Yeah.
And I think it was on Netflix. If it isn't still, it was at least on one of the big streaming sites. But in America, when it was broadcast, it was known as the Great British Baking Show. And I just thought we could think for a moment why that might be the case, why they might have chosen to replace Bake Off with Baking Show. Who are they pandering to?
The trouble with this question is that there is no answer. It's a
I've been
singular.
thinking about it for years now.
It's a singular piece of knowledge known only to the person who made that decision. I am
think it was
certain
one man.
It must have been. It can't have been signed off by more than one person. It must be like the network executive who is just like, what's this bake-off nonsense?
Yeah, it's one man who's like 70 years on Earth have somehow managed to like dodge around. He's slalomed around the use of the term bake-off in any context it could ever have come up. Like
Bake-off? What do you mean, bake-off?
He just steps onto a tube train as the doors close and someone's talking about it like off the train, or he like misses a bus where someone would have shouted it out loud for like 40 years of his life, and he just read it and assumed it was nonsense.
Yeah.
But like cook-off, that's an American thing.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is it? Oh, it's very annoying. Very upsetting.
Should we write to them? Should we try and find out?
Dear Baking Show, brackets, no.
Just like asterisk out baking show. Just like we refuse to write it on principle.
It just makes the title sound so stupid, though.
I know.
It's like the most literalist approach to describing a program. Like, if you called everything that, you would just have a TV guide that read like an encyclopedia of things it's possible to do on
BBC,
TV.
BBC, where they tell you the events of the day that happened today at 6 o'clock, yeah?
Will it rain or sun? Find out here.
You'll find out the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and seventh numbers of the lottery at this particular show.
P.S. The Thunderball. What is the Thunderball?
I don't know. It
Is it
feels
its
like
own separate thing?
yeah, it is. It's just a shit lottery. You've got more of a chance to win even less money.
It sounds like the deity that kind of oversees the lottery and that all of our money is a sacrifice to.
Well, like how Richard Osman, as like Endemol, was in charge of our televisions for years, and then suddenly decided, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to be on it too. Here I am. I want my own. The Thunderball
barrels in.
What's this? They've got the Euro millions, and yet I remain without,
Presented by mediocre Channel 4 rejects.
bereft of my own prize.
He has every number written on him. He has one number that if you read it, you just see the face of God.
And it's
so
him.
pure.
It's just his face again.
It's like looking into 8 different mirrors at once.
But no, you're right.
Anyway,
Drivel.
back to the 11 plus.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of on this idea of kind of odd phrasings, many of them do try their hands at metaphors, but I think that metaphor is so surprisingly difficult, certainly to grasp when you're younger.
Yeah,
the
it's a
idea that you
dangerous tool.
describe something as something else. You know, how are people going to be sure that that you're talking about the same thing?
I always thought the way that they explain simile and metaphor, like the difference, one is like and one is that it is the thing, it just really misleads you because it makes it sound very stupid in that context.
And
Like,
also,
well, the sky was a great big apron.
Yeah, and it's why you end up with these absurdly literal ones like Great Ball of Fire.
Yeah.
And this one, perhaps the best metaphor I have ever seen, describing. Well, let's see if you can figure out what it is.
Okay.
If I were able to fly, then I wouldn't ever need to get on a clunky polluter to go to other countries.
Is that the aeroplane?
That's the aeroplane. That's right. It's a clunky polluter. I think
sounds like a bit of beat poetry.
I thought it sounded like an early Dickens character. Just heading down to old clunky polluter's place.
He gave up even his quite literal names, like Mr. Smacks a Kid.
Yeah.
He just became even more of a... Charles, this is just lazy now, okay? Look, we published 5 million chapters of Great Expectations, one after the other.
Nothing's
and it was
happened.
clear
They're still
that
in a
no
swamp.
one knew where it was going, least of all you. And now you give us this bullshit. Take your clunky fucking polluter and fuck off. But that didn't happen.
It's just a wonderful, I want to interview this kid. Like, I want to talk to him and find out what was the inspiration. Like, is he attempting to put across an environmental message? Or is it a bit like the Birdemic guy who filled his film with, like, references to the environment and climate change and then afterwards refuses to admit that it's a theme of his own movie?
He kind of like Roland Barthes himself. He killed his own author.
Suicide of the
Very
Director
bold.
was a great
Yeah.
follow-up article.
I think clunky is an interesting choice as well, because polluter is the more obvious, but clunky.
Yeah.
Like, planes are lots of things, but if I went on a clunky plane, I'd
get off a
shouting about
clunky
it.
plane straight away.
Yeah. That would be upsetting.
Trying to see if there's any more of these. Oh, yeah, we've got a couple more. Someone who described, I don't know if I mentioned this one last week, but I'll say it again anyway, who described Coke as being black, but with highlights of brown.
Wow.
The most
That person's got a very long career in marketing.
the most depressing description of any liquid you could ever hope never to drink.
I'm sorry, waiter, I asked for highlights of brown.
It does feel a bit like a concession, doesn't it? Would you like a Coke? Oh, what colour is it? It's black. Oh, that doesn't sound very good. Oh, no. There's highlights of brown. Oh, well, sign me up.
It's like an estate agent trying to make you buy a cupboard. But it's like, well, it's small, but there's a dream of space. Like, it has the memory of expansion.
It's small, but there's the highlight of it having no doors.
Yeah. In a way, it's a win-win.
Then, I mean, this is kind of weird, but bordering on the really troublesome. Mm-hmm. Described going to the seaside. This is like one of Alan's video titles, right? Okay. You know, the mad journey.
Internet search, Alan.
Yeah, the mad journey that we go on where we get from thumb war to blowjob in 7 words.
Yeah.
This is a bit like that.
Okay.
Right? They just said that they went to the beach and I jumped in the salty sea. It tasted like feet. Wait, which was great.
Oh, I hate this child.
Isn't that
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
The salty sea tasted like feet, which was great.
That's so upsetting.
Why does this
on
child
so
like licking
many
feet? Why do they like licking feet? Why do they know what feet
Imagine
taste
having
like?
such a prismatic, grasp of your own fetishes at the tender age of 11.
How like
I
this?
think I knew what a woman was.
To Isaac, we're all the same androgynous blob.
I was in a single parent, just my mum family. I thought she was just a big robot that taught me where school was.
He has this strange disability where he sees everyone as the same amorphous androgynous shadow.
I had previously, maybe not that many years before, been grappling with that thing that I think is quite common, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't come up in the writing of children of about this age, where you first sort of realise your own theory of mind, and then the kind of counterpoint to that is well, if other people have minds, how do I know that they're not all just the same one? And you start thinking that everyone else is like a robot who's programmed to kind of appear that they're people in your life. Do you know what I mean? Yeah?
Isaac.
Don't go saying that's not common.
Isaac. I have marked in the last 2 years. I have marked thousands upon thousands of pieces of continuous writing from children. I have also spent a year in classrooms with them, and not a single one of them has ever even dared to approach a dream, a wisp, a shadow of that horrid concept, which
That's
you
because they're not going to tell you,
detailed as something that not only you came across as very young, but that you decided everyone surely came across that very young.
Think they do.
As if it's like to relive your own fantasy that everyone has the same mind. You've given everyone the same mad mind as you. You are an absolutely deeply troubled individual.
Super sane.
Next. I am I am certain that in years to come, my association with you is going to be so damaging to my reputation, and people will be like you were his friend for 30 years, and at least twice a month he told you what a fucking nutcase he was, and you didn't report it to anyone.
Look, I am the rising tide that lifts all nearby ships to another plane of thought. And if
that sounds like you're describing your own rapture.
Well, I didn't say it wasn't on the cards. I've seen enough occult crimes to know what can happen with a few well-placed shotguns.
The children of thunder shall rise again.
All one of them.
The last of these, we'll move on to a slightly nicer brand of madness than your own corruptive Revelations style psychosis. So the last of the sort of odd things that kids say is there was one boy who spoke. He just wanted the ability to turn into a bird, no other animal, just a bird.
Right.
Just his superpower was that he wanted to be a bird, essentially. And
he must look at birds with such
Envy.
jealous longing. You fucking won the lottery of life, you little winged pricks.
He said that I will become like a bird superhero, and all the people will look up to me, and they'll call me Sky High, and all the birds will look up to me as well, and they will call me Buck Buck in their own language.
What the fuck is that? That is not real.
The thing about this
That's
is that
an adult.
The thing about this is that this kid has clearly spent a long
That
time
person has
thinking
an
about this
8
previously.
diary length manifesto.
This person has
And they
birds,
shall call unto
dead
me
birds,
Buck
birds strung up like bunting around his own bedroom.
Buck Buck, bringer of the nest.
He's already like
Retainer of egg.
already scrawled it into his own skin.
With a compass.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I bet he goes home and just staples bird beaks to his own mouth, his own dry mouth, starts practicing his squawks.
He comes home, like if his mum has cooked chicken, he just screams constantly for 1 hour. It's like,
But then he has to eat it to honour every part.
yeah, of the bird. Like he has to go to the manufacturer and find the feet.
Salty and great like the sea.
just like all feet.
Imagine having thought so much about being because it's not just that he wanted to be a bird. You really understood that. He wants to be a bird god.
Yeah.
So he wants all people to look up to him. So he's like a human deity, but then also a bird deity. Like it seems like his thrust is to bring together the Israel-Palestine dispute that is bird and man.
Through homeopathic
in one mighty
bird medicine.
Buck. Fucking, that is mad. Like, that's worthy of reporting.
It's very Red Dragon again, isn't it?
Really upsetting.
I meant to say that I spoke to everyone's favourite friend and colleague Mark about these at the pub the other day, and when I mentioned the child from last week who said he wanted the superpower of running, Mark made a good point. He brought up the same idea as you. He was like, well, maybe they were in a wheelchair, and then he went,
or just very slow.
but even then, it's not a superpower. It's just redressing a balance.
Yeah.
So
I haven't thought of that.
it's, I mean, whichever way you put it, it's dreaming small.
I can only assume it was a different species that took this test. It was like a turtle.
A dolphin.
Dopin.
So we move on to my favourite and the final category of this, which is the sort of staggeringly adult things that sometimes kids say, or not necessarily adult, but like self-aware in some sense.
It's creepy when a child recognises its own childhood, isn't it?
Yeah, or where they
Disarm.
or where they recognise kind of that writing is somehow a sort of an inherently adult thing to do, or that it's like a huge part of adult life, and they feel quite grown up when they get to write continuously, and so they go for a very adult voice sometimes, and so you get these wonderful moments where a 10-year-old child is writing about something and they start their sentence with, I'll be honest. Or they say that like something that they wanted is to die for. And it's just these sort of glimpses of the angsty teenager and then the grown person that is trapped inside trying to get out, as I'm sure you would describe it, in your mad mind prison.
The choky of a corpse. That
Wow,
you're stuck inside.
great. Writing that one down for the old police. So there was a kid who got very overexcited by the idea of having a superpower. But then I don't know if it was on reading it back to himself or if it was just an immediate response, but he suddenly seemed to be crushed by the depressing realities of life.
It was like, even if I have a superpower, I'm still marching towards my own heat death.
Yeah. Well, there were actually two like this. One who I really commended for the absolute brutal honesty of it, which was they ended it by saying, I'll be honest, I'd probably get bored of this power after a week and give it up. Which I was like, tick,
Wow.
full marks.
That's the ennui of the millennial right there.
But there was another kid who wrote, it would be so cool to have, I can't remember which it was, fire powers. I wish this were true, ! And then had crossed out the exclamation mark, put a comma and written, and possible.
Oh, wow.
There was such like sadness in those final two
Crushing.
words.
In those like moments, like the crossing out tells a story of a few moments that elapsed where like that kid grew up. They reflected on that and thought, I can't become a footballer or like a pop star. I'm going to be an accountant or something.
It's like that.
And-
It's that bit in the film where you see someone type out the text and then hover over send and then delete it all, and you realise they're always going to keep this information to themselves. That they've been crushed by this.
Yeah, that's his days of dreaming done.
Yeah,
Sad.
poor guy. One kid again who I really commended for the honesty was he was one of the ones who took the reset. So they had slightly different questions, one of which was to describe their favourite drink, I think, as I mentioned. And
Fucking boring.
well, that was this kid's point. He wrote about how he loved Coke, and then he said, he went, honestly, there's not that much more to say about this, but I need a few more sentences, so I'm just going to tell you to go and drink Coke. Do it. Go and drink some Coke.
In the year that he's reset, Coke is in the pocket of big soft drinks.
I know.
He's getting bubbly treats on retainer for every advert he can sneak into a public exam.
Some of them were like, some of the responses to that question proved the unstoppable power of advertising, because so many of them were like, they read like advert scripts. You'll love the fizzy taste of Fanta. The most. It was absolutely like.
That's grim.
I know, it was really sad. Also, I realised that I do have an overarching point, and it leads on quite nicely from this section. So hold your breath for that one.
That's exciting indeed.
Let's see. I think we've only got a couple more to go though. Oh, so let's see. We've got. Yes. All right. Are you ready? We've got
I'm
final
ready.
3. In at 3, there was the child who said very upfront that he wanted to have telekinesis, but
Yep.
in much a similar vein to us, he wanted it just to do very small pranks on people. The moving the chair a half an inch, the knocking
The letterbox that we discussed.
exactly, the like opening someone's computer disk tray or something without every 2 minutes. And he literally said that he wanted this power because it would be fun tricking the gullible.
Wow. Ooh,
I could not tick that
what an
enough.
amazing thing to think at the age of 11.
It's such a Machiavellian sort of
Tricking
acknowledgement
the
that he feels as though, much like yourself, he's on a different plane. He's the absolute buck of
This
the
could be like
superpower
that
world.
episode of Always Sunny in the most recent series, though, where Dennis Reynolds meets that little girl at a water park.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's like his protege, but then turns out to just fucking.
I'm gonna introduce you to this kid.
I'm gonna be so deeply suspicious of him.
He'll like mug you and then just run away and post it online to mock you.
Horrible.
In at number 2, we have someone, perhaps the most cynical child that I've ever encountered, certainly at 10 years old. He said, my favourite subject is art, because with art, there's no right and no wrong. You could draw a galaxy scribble and still get applauded for it.
Oh, I don't know. That to me reads a bit like someone in his family's gone on a big rant about why art is bullshit. There's like, you could draw a fucking galaxy scribble and get away with it.
His dad's one of these people who looks at pop art and is like, fuck, it's not real art though, is it? It's not real
Anyone
art.
could do that. Shark in formaldehyde. I've got a 10 in the
Look
boot.
at this fucking... What we need is the Haywane. That's real art. boring pastoral pictures that are photorealistic. That's what I want. I want a photograph, but I want it in paint. Right? I don't want none of your conceptual. I don't want to have to think.
Interpretation, none of your shapes.
Look and see.
I want to see.
I want to come down every morning and know that I'm going to feel exactly the same apathy looking at that fucking cart full of hay. That's what I want.
There it is.
Well, we've got this kid sussed out.
Yeah.
I hope that is a direct quote from his dad that's just stuck with him and he's decided to chuck it in there. Because if so, it's fucking genius. A galaxy scribble is the perfect summation of like the failings of modern art.
It's a weird choice.
And then in at number 1, the best thing that I have ever read from a child of this age, just for so many reasons, for the specificity, for the really personal voice that comes through in the writing, for the real world grounding of their own writing. This is Joycean in its hyper realism, in the specificity with which it paints the world that this person is trying to convey.
Mm-hmm. And what was this in response to?
This was in response to the favourite part of the school day.
Okay.
My favourite part of the school day is art. They go on to describe why they love art, all of the various different techniques that you can use and the different types of art that you can create. Talking about the various colours, the moods that they can elicit, both from the artist and from the audience. They really lull you in. They draw you into the world of art, and I'll be honest, they make you agree. I was going with all the people who said lunch as my favourite part of the school day, but I was ready to turn. I was ready to change my mind and be on board the art train.
Convincing.
And I think that this child knew that because they finished their piece with a little aside that went thus. As you can see, I'm a huge art buff. And if reading this has made you one too, then you might want to go and buy yourself an art kit. Brackets, only $10.99 in the works.
Wow. That's amazing. That's someone who is so aware of their own persuasive powers and is already using them to direct people to their own will.
For marketing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I was crying in the room. I could not. Just imagining this kid sat there like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'll let them know. I'm really happy with my art set from the works. I fully recommend it. This kid is that person who actually goes on TripAdvisor after they've been anywhere and leaves a fully fledged review.
This kid has a 25% stake in every $10.99 art kit sold by the works.
This kid is the one
shop that sells everything.
This kid is the one who they fill out all the optional questionnaires to give you the feedback. Like, even if they know they're getting nothing in return.
This kid is probably part of the demographic that gave us baking show in a focus group. He's like, you know what? Some people, they won't know what a bake-off is. So on balance, my vote goes for baking show. Actually, that's amazing.
This has actually just reminded me, speaking of those surveys and questionnaires, do you remember when we went to Alton Towers? I know it got slightly overshadowed by nearly being murdered.
Oh yeah, it did rather.
But we went to the roller coaster restaurant where your food arrives on a little rails throughout the entire restaurant. We might have to go back and edit that.
It did a loop the loop, guys.
All of your food and drinks did a little loop the loop and then came to you on little wheels through rails. It was incredible. It was worth the extortionately inflated prices that they charged for very mediocre food.
For a chip.
But when we left, there was a little touchscreen pad that was oh, just fill out our questionnaire, literally at the door, the exit.
Yeah.
And normally that's one of those, it's just sort of 4 smiley faces, isn't it? How was your service today?
Like you give to a psychopath to see if they understand emotion.
That's the one they tell me means sadness.
Yeah.
we sort of pressed the first 2, and then we were like, okay, yep. And then we filled in another, and another. And we were there for about 20 seconds, and we'd answered maybe 8 questions. And we were like, hopefully this is over soon. We looked at the bottom. Yeah. There was a little progress bar that said we were 11% of the way through. Whoever has
like,
A,
well,
time
do
to
you
fill
know
out this
what?
questionnaire, but B, if you do, how does anyone else leave the restaurant? Like, this is just the one door out.
Imagine having like 25 minutes worth of opinions about the roller coaster restaurant. Like, mine have already been summarised. I already have run out of things to say.
Food did a
Food
loop.
was mediocre. The delivery was hilarious. That was it. What else am I going to add?
Isaac's feedback
bullshit
was
service.
get rid of the rails and cook better food.
Hey guys, have you heard of waiters? Okay.
Nice gimmick, guys, but what about the taste?
Yeah, I would never bother with anything of the sort. Well, I think that's a very solid conclusion to the 11 plus. Are you likely to be doing it again next year? We could make this our
hope
first
so.
annual feature.
I hope so. Well, I think Thorpe Park's going to be our first annual feature, isn't it?
Wow, we're going. Oh yeah, of course we might as well.
We'll
Check
might
on
as
the
well.
old ugly status. What's that?
Make sure
all
it's-
reports coming in still fuck ugly. Still
make
a
sure
car
that
park.
it's what's that? Still unpainted.
Still loose narratives hung around
hope-
decrepit rides.
I hope that I get to do it again next year. I think that I will if I can.
I think it's a good
the-
source of something.
The overarching thought that I kind of had about it, though, is that it is slightly depressing reading some of their stuff. Because even when they're being particularly like adult in their phrasing or self-aware, there is, it seems, and I know I'm sure this is something that is traditional to say as you get older, but there does seem to be an increasing cynicism among children. But what actually depressed me more is that so many of them are already thinking in such capitalist, money-centric like mindsets. So many of them wanted superpowers so that they could get a job.
Oh no!
Or they wanted
Imagine that
to be
having
able...
to be a superpower.
I know, like genuinely, they were like, I could easily get a job, or like
My superpower is
I could-
universal basic income.
you know, yeah.
Wow,
Mine's
tragic.
collective farming. Like, so many of them wanted superpowers because if I could fly, we wouldn't need the car, so we wouldn't have to pay road tax.
my
Like, genuinely, so many of them thinking in terms of already taxes and in terms of like jobs and wages and professions, and it's like already stuck in this mindset of, if you're going to have a thought, it has to be about the real world, and it has to be pragmatic, which
That's sad.
is saddening. But it kind of thankfully gets drowned out a bit under the hilarity of the tsunami of nonsense that is everyone else's responses to the question.
good.
But I think that we should.
So I guess we need the balance.
Yeah, but I think that we should still be encouraging kids to be kids, shouldn't we?
Well, look, I think if our podcast stands for anything, it's for both the promotion of
And propagation
and
of.
derision, and
Nonsense.
propagation of nonsense in all its forms. Like, we're perfectly happy to get down with some kid who wants to talk about the great ball of fire that is the sun. The Earth was like a great big planet. Yep, it was.
The trees were like growths that had sprouted and grown over hundreds of years.
like a giant plant.
Dead.
Calcified, but not calcium, more like wood.
That year on year would shed their leaves and then grow them again.
Wow, what a specific insight you have there into horticulture. That's like my article about pruning trees. And with that, full circle have we come. We should go on to email, but also I have to go, so I suggest we do email tomorrow.
Yes, that sounds good.
Cool. I'm going to head off immediately.
Oh, I see. I thought
show's ended.
Oh, right, I see.
Bye.
You're preparing to do a segment tomorrow. I thought that was just the most sudden end to an episode ever. You're just like, that's it. I'm leaving.
So, lads,
I'm out. I can't. I'm
46 was
I'm
the
not
last
taking
one.
this anymore.
My
I
contract's
didn't
pretty
know
much
it
done.
going into 45, but 46 is the limit. It is the line.
Sealed the deal.
45
Look,
minutes
I've heard
and
there's
I'm out.
10.99 art kits at the work, so do me better than this.
I'll come home,
half
do a
the money.
fucking galaxy scribble, and take my applause. So I think it's time, don't you, for our regular feature, high in demand, high in
Which
supply.
one? There's so many.
No, the only one.
Oh, yes.
That's right. It's shame mail.
What a name. Now,
You know, now-
do you remember the day we came out with
I've
Shame
just
Mail?
realised that Sondheim would have had a go at me there because I I only had the one M.
Oh yeah, he doesn't like illusion.
Shame mail.
Shame mail.
Mail. Sorry, guys. We hold ourselves to a higher standard than that.
Yeah, if Steve wasn't going to like it, then we have to cut the whole show. That's just how we work. But look, we've had quite the selection of emails this week, and that's what we aim for. TAS@shame.city, TAS that is, @shame.city is the way to get in touch. Who has been in touch this week?
Well, I believe that you have up an email from the wonderful Mark Stratfold.
I do. Here it is. Now, the subject is either secretions or... No, it's only secretions.
That is very much the thrust of the email, if you remember.
Isaac and Declan. Correct. Host ordering. I was supposed to hear... No, I can't fucking read today. I was surprised to hear your discussion with regards to the... Oh, I'm so sad.
Are you okay?
Look, it's been a difficult day for me.
You were just telling me how life was getting better for you in terms of eating.
It doesn't take me hours anymore.
You were less afraid of choking to death.
Yeah.
And now...
I mean, it's still a fear, but a rational fear.
No, but
it literally is a rational fear.
Well, no.
If you're not afraid of choking to death, you're not human.
Being afraid every time you open your mouth to put something in it of choking to death is somewhat irrational.
Anything. Different foods have a different chokeability factor, and if you want to see
have them in a spreadsheet.
Any listeners?
Isaac's been compiling it since birth.
Since that first apple was lodged into my throat at the age of about 6, sitting in a primary school. I remember it very well. My mum used to cut up the apple for me, right? Because I didn't like the peel.
You're not about to blame this
on being
on
a doting mother. No, I'm not.
Good.
But being a doting mother, she'd provide it in a little Tupperware box, a cut up apple. And there I was, just eating it, and all of a sudden, lodged, stuck, a bolus, just at one with my very esophagus. And I thought, well, this is my childhood over. And it was, in many ways. Anyway, Mark's emailed. Isaac and Declan, I was surprised to hear your discussion with regards to the...
Right, am I going to have to read this email?
No, I can do it.
No, I don't believe that you can.
Just the other day, I had to read out like 300 pages of a play in front of people. And I'd made no mistakes. And now, this is my Everest. Isaac and Declan. I, says Mark, was surprised to hear your discussion. Now I'm just panicking about this sentence. And with regards to the 11 plus. There we go. I thought it had become extinct many years ago. I did have to take it and did in fact manage to pass it. This is unlike my O-level English language, which I went on to fail 3 times.
We should just say that reading your emails, you wouldn't be able to tell that. Very eloquent.
Just goes to show that standardised examinations are total
bullshit.
Yes, that's it. Knowing your propensity for homing in on grammatical or spelling errors, which is really out of the window and I can't even speak, this does lead me to proofread my emails to yourselves prior to sending. No bad thing. It was interesting to hear your misread and ensuing discussion of the word secreted or secreted. I had to go online to check my use of the word. How can one word mean both the production of saliva and the concealing of something? Also, why can't the process of concealing something be an act of secretion?
That's horrid.
Yes, that is upsetting. It's nonsense. My father, who was a teacher, glad we solved that one, used to mark O-levels during the summer holidays. I always remember having to be absolutely quiet in the house. At the end of the day, he would often show us some of the more amusing answers. Even after all of these years, I remember some.
Isaac, are you going to have to take a break? You've had a whole day to prepare for this.
I know, but I've just eaten party rings all day. I'm really amped. One who had only written his name on the paper and in fact had managed to misspell that. Another who had written a long essay asking for a pass grade as his father had paid lots of money for additional tuition and had told him if he failed, then his allowance would be stopped. Unfortunately, this had no relevance on the questions asked. Thank you for that,
That's a great
Mark.
end to that story.
It is, isn't it? Imagine going through the effort of writing out a whole essay about, like, a plea. It's a real gambit, isn't it?
Isaac, I've started secreting blood, so I'm just going to run to get something. I'll be back in a sec.
What's that happened? Well, while Declan's gone, let's try and, you and me, listener, brainstorm some reasons. given that he's just sitting still in his room, how, it's a bit like an Agatha Christie, if Poirot walked in now and he found that Declan was bled out all over the floor of his dining room, no one had come in, because we'd have heard that. No one's set up anything in advance, I don't think, because I've been speaking to him for 10 minutes before. So it's anyone's guess. I'm going to go with mishandling a beer bottle, maybe an errant stapler just sort of fell onto his leg, or maybe pre-existing wound that he bashed.
Hello.
So what happened?
I had a scab on my leg, and I pulled my chair in and ripped
That
it
was
off.
my final guess. I had a little game while you were away where me and the future listener tried to guess what was the cause of your wound,
Right.
we were detectives. And my third guess was a pre-existing injury that you'd bashed somehow.
What were guesses 1 and 2?
The first one was mishandling a beer bottle.
That will that doesn't reflect too well on me. That was guess number 1.
He died how he lived. Mishandling liquor.
Dicking around with the booze.
Okay, so we've had another email.
We have indeed.
It's from our good pal Kevin. Do you have it up ready to read, or shall I give it a taste?
We're all ready to go with Kevin.
After you, then.
The subject was Airbnb, which I'll be honest brought back some horrid memories.
I collapsed into the fetal position as soon as I saw the notification.
But it seems that Kevin has found an article on the ever reputable MSN.com. They're still going, guys.
I know, it's good, isn't it?
Don't go thinking they've paled into technological obscurity. They are
Despite
soldiering.
no one reading them.
Nope, not a soul. Just Kevin.
Yep.
Just Kevin and now me.
That's great.
Kevin says, guys, I wonder if this person is related to Joe/Angela. I like that our listenership has really come round to the idea that they are one and the same, that they are inextricably...
Yeah, they're two sides of the same murderous coin.
Yes, the same murderous cross-dressing absolute lunatic. And then we have a link to this MSN article, the headline of which is couple staying in Airbnb spot something odd about smoke detector and make terrifying discovery. Pithy is what I say.
Yes. Can't see why MSN isn't on top of their
This
game
was only
anymore.
posted by Steve Robson, that's a fake name, nobody's called that, 15
really?
hours ago. So this is
pretty
fresh
much
news.
hot off the
Yeah.
press.
There's a picture accompanying the article, which I'm sure we'll share. It is horror. If ever you thought, if you were asked, if you read that headline and asked to picture who might be involved, this is the first face that would come to mind. And
Yeah, he's even doing an expression that's pleased with himself. It's sort of pouty.
yeah. So,
Horrible.
a couple staying at an Airbnb called police after finding cameras and microphones hidden in 2 smoke detectors. Derek Starnes and his wife were renting a holiday home in Longboat Key, Florida, when they made the horrifying discovery. Police said Mr. Starnes... That's not a name. Police said Mr. Starnes spotted an, quote, odd black dot on the smoke detector directly above the bed in the master bedroom.
Makes it sound like there were loads of black dots that he just were like,
that's
well, that's
fine.
just normal.
Yeah. What,
Run-of-the-mill
why
black
wouldn't you
dot.
have a black dot there?
Yeah.
And decided to take a closer look. He realised it was a camera lens and found the recording equipment inside when he opened it up. Now, obviously, that seems like 2 crimes in one, because there surely isn't enough room for camera equipment and a smoke alarm inside there.
Oh, so you're saying he's not only a horrible pervert,
He's
he's
actually
also endangering
negligent
them
of fire
because of
safety
fires.
laws, yeah.
Yeah, that's very
And
true.
is that not the worst crime? The same apparatus was inside another detector in the living room. The couple from Indiana called police, and the Airbnb owner, Wayne Nat,
Oh dear. Wayne Nat
has been charged
That's a
with
shame.
video voyeurism. What a nice alliterative
Yeah.
crime.
That's a horrible name for
Police
a crime.
have confiscated his computer equipment and found videos dating back as far as 2008.
This is a long
Now,
con.
this is the sentence that I have been looking forward to reading, because I love nothing more than defences which seem in themselves to be even more incriminating. Nat apparently told police the cameras were only for his own personal use when he hosted sex parties and weren't activated when guests were staying.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. That's all right then, isn't it, Nat?
Even in that, the use of the phrase personal use implies that the people taking part in the sex party don't know either. So it's just admitted to recording even more illicit material.
I have never been more certain that someone named Wayne Nat could not, would not, has not ever been involved in anything that could reasonably be described as a sex party.
No.
Being called Wayne Nat just precludes you from such activities. Surely.
I've also never been more certain that the cameras were indeed activated when guests were staying.
But even though Wayne said...
I know that Wayne said that they weren't, but I feel as though Wayne's reputation is somewhat tarred by this whole event.
Well, I guess.
But police confirmed they were operated remotely, is the next sentence as well.
Oh, so we solved that lead. Great.
I love that MSN had no time for suspense. It was the next sentence. Just get rid of it.
Not even like a break with a photo or something.
No. Our question is, if people are aware the cameras are there, why are they hidden in smoke alarms? And his answer was, for a better angle, said Lieutenant Robert Bork. Fucking hell.
These people are not real.
This is a fiction.
This is a fantasy.
Bork spelt like talk as well, but with a B.
Oh, no.
For a better angle. You know when you're trying to take a photograph of a family photograph?
I always keep a smoke machine on
you
me.
just you try in front and then you turn people around so that they're facing the light so you can catch their faces and then you just look up to the ceiling and you think, oh, what if it was behind a little grate of this smoke detector?
Specifically inside this beeping little circle of smoky love.
I'm sure that's where all the best images are taken.
Yeah.
The officer said he is concerned many more people may be victims of Nat's voyeurism and asked anyone who is worried to come forward. Well, that's us. I'm worried.
I just by default, yeah.
Deeply troubled.
I don't like the idea that he's... I guess that's the crime though, isn't it? Because it's his personal violation. Because he can just get off on going around looking at anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't like that he can do that. He could just walk down the street getting off on just making eye contact with anyone.
Just seeing people through glass. Doesn't matter what they're doing.
I hope the whole of Florida turns him in, says that they've been involved.
Yeah, it's like Spartacus.
Yeah,
I'm Spartacus.
Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus and so's my wife. I suspect there are other victims. It's just a matter of identifying them or not, said
Or not.
Lieutenant Bork.
Why is that an option?
WFLA.
Said Lieutenant Bork, running home for a nap after a busy 1 hour at the office.
Said Lieutenant Bork, checking his watch. Who knows what it's been used for? Well, we all know what it's been used for.
Certain.
First of all, Wayne Nat told you. Meanwhile, Mr. Starnes said he and his wife had been left, quote, distressed by what happened.
That's fair.
He said he is certain the camera captured him naked before he realised it was there. I love that he's told this to the police. He's like,
well, I'm certain about something. I'm certain it captured me naked before I realised it was there.
That's a really good Indiana accent there.
I forgot he's from Indiana. I was being a little farmer.
An Airbnb spokesman told the channel, "We are outraged at the reports of what happened. As soon as we were made..."
So here's $25. Fucking
and we'll
cheap
and we'll tell you we're cutting them off, but we won't.
Yeah, I bet his place is
We are
still
outraged at the reports of what happened. As soon as we were made aware, we permanently banned this individual from our community and fully supported the affected guests. Our team has reached out to local law enforcement to aid them with their investigation of this egregious offence, and we hope justice is served. But, if not, that's no biggie.
If not, I mean, as long as it goes down to 17 quid a night.
We take privacy issues extremely seriously. Well, maybe they'd like to hear about me being in pants, having the bedding ripped off of me.
How little they want to hear it.
And have a zero tolerance policy against this behaviour. That is a lie.
Horrible. Well, thank you for letting us know, though, Kevin. It's good to know that Joe is part of an international conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that his kind of horrible hosting antics. I bet there's a sub forum somewhere where they all go on and talk about how they've terrorised guests this week.
There's a related article, apparently. The headline of the picture for it is just a freckly, red-haired girl with like frizzy red hair staring out at the camera, and the headline is, "Did you take out a mortgage between 1988 and 2011?"
Oh yeah, that's related. Hell of a bit of news reporting.
None of that is related. That's not related to this story. That headline's not related to the picture. All these three things are about as divorced as they possibly could be.
Generated by that robot that drowned itself.
Oh yeah.
Kevin ends his email with, also, please go back to twice a week. Even thrice would be nice. Thrice would be nice. There's got to be a feature.
That's a mug, Emily, if you're listening.
Yeah, get
Pop it on a mug.
There may be some news on scheduling upcoming in the next couple of weeks, so keep your eyes to the sky, and we'll let you know.
I think you should stop trying to force these phrases.
That's already a very famous phrase. Keep your eyes to the skies. That's what people say about aliens, isn't it? Isn't it?
Was that relevant to the discussion about scheduling podcasts?
In a way, because it just means keep an eye out. But it's a sort of specifically
vaguely
alien
extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I like to always hint at,
something.
And if they do arrive, I'll be like, well, I called it, episode 46.
Go back and listen.
It may have sounded like I was just saying, keep an eye out for an email, but what I meant was they're coming and they're going to take you first.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers imminent.
Yeah, I just coded in my delivery. If you, the listener, not you, Declan, because this would be a total waste of your time, but if anyone else would like to get in touch with me, with Declan, with the very concept of the show, there are myriad ways to do so. We've made it so easy that you can basically do it with your eyes closed. In fact, you can do it just by asking Siri, as I'm going to try and do now. Hey Siri, tweet at That's a Shamecast, love the show.
My web search turned on.
See? Easy, guys. Anyone can do it.
I was really hoping that you were logged in as That's a Shamecast, just so the account tweets it to itself.
No, when I started that, I was 95% sure that it would not work. So I was quite happy to give it a go. But look, there are so many ways. Let's barrel through just a few of them now. How would you go about getting in touch?
You could do it by the website. The wonderful, colourful, well-designed, frequently updated Shame City. Shame.city.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's one of the great domains, isn't it?
I had to catch my breath after the dot, which made it sound far more dramatic than ever it was.
Shame.
Dot.
You'll never guess. You thought it was going to be a colon, didn't you? Well, have you heard of the full stop?
Shame.town.
Oh, no. None of that. We were going to be shame.life or something for a bit, weren't we? Then we gave up on that.
Dreadful.
Dreadful bit of
It's
nonsense.
not even town-based.
Rubbish. Shame.city is the place to be. There's a contact form there. You type in your message and all that, and it wings its way straight into our lives, and we'll read it out.
Potentially straight back out again, depending on what Gmail feels like.
Yeah, we follow its moods, temperamental though they might be. Twitter, what about that?
They can find the show, as you mentioned earlier, at That's a Shamecast. I would probably do it with, your fingers and thumbs rather than relying on Siri. Bless her. She's not...
Yeah, she tries.
She's not well. Or he.
Is your Siri male?
I don't know. I think so.
Mine's not. I don't know why.
I'm going to change it. I want mine to be an androgynous kind of robotic voice.
I want mine to be Microsoft sound.
I'm going to try and rename mine Bigsby.
Bixby. What a dreadful name that is. Is it Samsung?
Yeah, I think
Siri?
it is the Samsung.
It's called Bixby, guys. Just think about that. That is a shame. Archetypal shame.
Take that away until next week.
Yeah, just dwell on that. I haven't got any material on it. That's just something for you to think about in your own heads.
It's just something that I'm constantly angry about.
Whenever it comes back into my life, it just infuriates me briefly. Declan.
Obviously, you can find us individually at Cynical Declan. That's my one, in case you haven't guessed. You can also find Isaac at Isaac BD.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other ways that you can reach out to us in the intervening period.
Shall I give out your phone number?
Perhaps. No, that's not what I was thinking. Thanks for that. I get enough unsolicited calls from Nigel from the Labour Party to keep me going through the week.
Hello, it's Nigel from your audience. I've got to talk to you about this bi-weekly bullshit.
I need to talk to you about Bixby.
Go away, Nigel.
No, I was thinking that maybe if our listeners were feeling particularly generous, and certainly if any of them were interested in a return to bi-weekly scheduling, I mean, they could always leave us a little review.
Oh, I'd forgotten entirely about the whole concept of the review.
They?
So, shame.city/review or reviews.
I love that you haven't bothered to find out which.
Here's the sad
in the
part
5
is
weeks
that I have several times and I just forget so quickly. It's such a boring thing to remember. It might look. I can't walk you through the whole thing.
Shall I try now?
Yeah.
Shame.city/review.
I think it's review.
It's taken me straight to itunes.apple.com/podcast.
There it is. Don't go telling me all the
/ID
slash.
12279355171.
So it turns out shame.city/review is the place to be. If you go from an iOS device, it'll take you straight over to the reviews page. If you're not on that hype, say Bixby's your man for the job, then just give it a goog. That's a Shame podcast. Head to iTunes or wherever, but mainly iTunes. Drop us the 5 stars that you know this show deserves, and we'll appreciate it in a big way. We read them out every couple of weeks when they're updated, because here's the thing, there are so many different stores, iTunes stores, 150 something of them, one per country, not quite. So I can't be expected to just log into each one, can I? So I have to wait until it emails me, which is only like every month. But read out they shall be, appreciated even more. Isn't that right?
It's entirely correct, and it gives us a little glow.
Oh, it does. It's more than a glow. It's a full-on, I don't want to even say what
Explosion
it is.
of colour.
Colour, yeah. Look, the last 2 things. Shame.city/mail. Get on the mailing list. There is, I can definitively state, a bonus episode coming out this month.
That is
At least one.
true. That is a fact.
Because I don't know when our Halloween specials... Should we drop that on Halloween?
Definitely.
Which is a Tuesday. So then we'll have a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So that's one bonus, but that's for everyone. There will also be a separate bonus for the mailing list only. Secret Shame, that's called. If you want to get on the hype, it's very easy. We don't spam you. Shame.city/mail is the way to do that.
The opposite of spamming you.
Last but not least, if you've ever walked past someone on the street whose posture is just, I don't know, they're pointing floorwards. Maybe they're kind of scuffing their feet along in that horrible sandy sound that people make when they don't lift their knees high enough. And they're just maybe dribbling a bit from the eyes. And you get a sense, a deep miasma of melancholy about them. Here's what you do. You run up to them gently, not with a fury in your mind. You grab them by the shoulders, again, only consensually. You have to ask them first.
Don't
and you
Harvey
say,
Weinstein your way into their lives.
if you do that in the name of this,
That's it.
get out now. Turn it off. Put it down.
You will become
Prison.
the Shame.
Turn yourself
we'll
in.
put your face on that dog and
Yeah.
turn the hat into a dunce's hat.
We'll change the name to That's the Shame, and each week we just shout your name for 1 hour. Don't want that, do you?
It's like This Is Your Life, but far angrier.
and repetitive. You take this person in a non-specific, consensual way, in out of love, born out of love, and you say, listen, here's a way to cheer up. Every week, Wednesday as it is, Shame.city, That's a Shame podcast. It's comedy in the loosest sense by some people you've never heard of. They'll thank you for it in the long run. I'm not saying we've saved lives in a way that we know about yet, but we certainly haven't killed anyone.
We sometimes walk down. We've walked down Canterbury High Street just screaming about the show for all to hear, and the response has been. No, I'm not going to say positive. I'm not going to lie, but what I will say is no one called the police, and that's progress from some of our previous protests.
Yeah, previous advertising campaigns as well. No one's in trouble. It's just a way of spreading the love. So if you've got a friend who likes podcasts or likes listening to words spoken aloud, just enjoys the basic fun that comes from vibrating your own ear canal, then send them our way. The more, the merrier. This has been episode 46.
I think it's been a great episode. You know, at the start when you said what an episode we've got for you.
Wait, are you saying I was right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Never question it again. Anyone. Okay. I've been Isaac. You've been.
I've been Declan.
Yeah. We'll see you on Wednesday.
See you then.
necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. The bare